Welcome to MMA Fancast. My name's Luke, and I am joined by friend of the show and now professional boxer with an undefeated record of 1 win and 0 losses, Vince Mosca. Vince, welcome back to the show.
What's up, Luke? How you doing today, man?
Well, I am thrilled. This is a great addition to my day. Thanks so much for taking time.
Sure.
Under a week ago, you made your pro boxing debut. You've been kind enough to come on the show several different times, some about Muay Thai, kickboxing, and then you came on and previewed moving to strict pure boxing. And so walk us through it. I know you've got a lot to share. It's obviously a once-in-a-lifetime experience to make your pro debut.
Yeah.
So talk us through it.
It was awesome, man. Honestly, I was the 6th fight of the night on a pretty big card. A lot of established guys came right after me, but I was towards the end of the night. We sold the place out basically. When I walked out, you heard my crowd at Maryland Live Casino. I think it probably annoyed my opponent, but it was very infectious. I was looking at people in the front row chanting my name because of my section chanting my name. So that was a really cool experience. As far as the fight, like the weigh-in was good. Everything went well with making the weight. I made 175 pounds for the first time in years, which sucked. But everything went well with that. The fight went well. My opponent was super tough. He was a tough guy. He pushed the pace for all 4 rounds. I hit him a couple times in maybe the first 20 seconds. I was like, this is going to be a quick night. But no, he made me actually settle down, focus on my boxing and stuff like that. I got all 4 rounds in. It was a good, very clear-cut fight, but just incredibly grateful for the experience, man. It was the first step of hopefully many more. But no, Saturday was one of the coolest nights of my life. I'm not even gonna lie to you. It was a good night.
Well, I'm glad it went like a picture book would have it.
Yeah.
You talked before when you were previewing this fight that it's the first time you fought in your local area ever, and you've always been kind of the traveling team or the person that goes to where the fights are. In fact, for a couple of years, you thought you were going to go to Mexico for a national title that never really developed. So I know you planned to go everywhere. So the fact that the crowd was behind you, that you sold a lot of tickets, that's really nice. And you had talked before this that obviously making your pro debut, you want to get the win, you did, but that you would, after your pro debut, then you've got to kind of figure out how long are you going to try in pro boxing? It's going to become something that you dedicate more to. You had shared honestly last time that you kind of hit a wall in training until you switched over and kind of wanted to focus just on pure boxing. So how are you doing mentally as far as staying hungry and being excited?
So it's always easy to fall into that kind of mindset when you're in the end of training camp. You're tired, you're hungry, you're beat up, you're having the doubts. It's I guess it's easy to say now that I won, but I've talked to a lot of fighters since then that have been like, no, that's a normal thought. Like I've talked to guys like I'm sure you remember years ago, we actually talked about this a lot. Zach Kelly from PA. Oh yeah. He fought like 50 times and all 50 of the fights, he was like, this is my last one. And after the fight, he would go back and fight again. No, once I made weight, a lot of the doubts went away. I realized I worked harder than this guy. I worked harder than most guys I fight. It was such a good feeling being in front of everybody to where no matter where the result went, I was content. I knew I got better in this last 2 months. I showed some signs of how good I can be. I don't know how much I'm allowed to say contractually, but there's until at least for the next couple of days. But there are some big things coming with me and Jetter Promotions for the next couple of years. I think I'm gonna do this a couple more times for sure. I enjoy the ride. I enjoy learning. I enjoy the experience of competing and all that. So now that it's over, I can kind of take the breath, map out my next couple of months. But now that it's over, I'm still extremely motivated to get back to it, learn some things, and get back under the lights, man. It was a good time. I definitely felt like I belonged there on Saturday night for sure.
Well, that's all coming up aces, as they say, in the sense that, going through the adversity, in this case, the training and the weight cut, that in many ways is the trial to get to. I know a lot of people have said it, but it's, if you train hard, you fight easy. And that's kind of what it sounds like. Not that a fight is ever easy, but you don't want the fight to be the hardest. You want the stuff that leads up to it to be the hardest. That way you're prepared. Obviously, I don't want to get you in trouble with contract stuff. You're a friend of mine for almost a decade now. You're a friend of the show now. So we'll just keep having you back on. So once you're allowed to make official announcements, whenever that happens, you just come back on the show and we'll just talk about it then. Now, I want to ask you a little bit of a question that I hope you're able to answer with some insight, and that is, you have fought in pretty much every style of martial arts and sometimes mixed martial arts training and stuff. When you were, and obviously you're dialed in, it's your pro debut. So I'm just curious, at any point in your fight of 4 rounds, did you feel like you were missing, oh, I'd love to throw a knee, or I'd love to throw an elbow, or, oh, I got to watch the takedown? Because I know, like we've talked before about how in MMA environment, you have to be very careful of the takedown because you're a striking heavy approach. So did any of those thoughts come up, or were you kind of completely comfortable with the two boxing weapons? Because there's a lot of differences in Muay Thai, which is the fight of 8 limbs, the battle of 8 limbs, which you had just been training hardcore in Muay Thai. So I'm just curious, did any of those thoughts come through that you were missing the clinch or things like that?
So it's funny. I've actually been asked that a lot in the last few months, but I got asked a lot that after the fight. And so I'm trying to articulate it the best way I can. I didn't have those thoughts at all on Saturday. No, like I didn't have the thought, because when I started boxing a little more seriously about 6 months ago, if I threw a left hook, I wanted to throw the right kick. That was kind of like just so ingrained in me over the years, to where I would stand really upright. I was expecting to throw that right low kick, or like if I throw like a right hook, I'd go left knee. So that was something that I did have to break myself of. I would stand really upright, elbows would be flared out to catch kicks, stuff like that. As far as Saturday was concerned, no. I've done so much boxing over this last year to where it's not even a thought. Like if I demonstrate a kick in class, it kind of pulls on my hip a little weird now. It's kind of like I haven't really been doing it at all lately. I hopped in for a few MMA camps to help some guys out the last couple months, but really I've been strictly boxing. So the thoughts of throwing a kick are out of my head. If a guy, like, he rolled his head under a few times, I didn't have the thought. No, I mean, 6 months ago I might have, but I didn't have the thought to throw anything weird. What I will say is there's still so many kickboxing habits in me that I'm realizing I'm still like sitting on heavy shots. I'm not always throwing in combinations. My head's still like not always moving under after my shots, which, like I said before, you can't do in kickboxing. So I have a lot of kickboxing habits still there. But as far as did I want to kick him in the middle of a combination? No. Like I will say this, in my amateur fight in April, there was a few times like it literally looked like I thought about it. So I've broken that habit, thank God. I will not throw a kick in a boxing match. No, I've broken that habit. But kickboxing habits are there. No thoughts of kicking somebody in a boxing match, thank God. Luckily, because that would be a really bad look. But now,
well, and you're honest enough, which I appreciate that. That's why you put the training in, because without training, without focusing back on boxing, you could have. It looks a little old, so it might have been 10 years ago, but there's a clip making the rounds on the little Facebook reel, and it's clearly a boxing fight where a guy comes out and shoots a double leg and takes right out, and then he can stand back up. And it's like, the clip above it is you're in a boxing match, but you think it's MMA or something, which is funny. So clearly it can happen, but obviously the training that you put in makes a difference. The fact that you did amateur boxing to kind of clear your focus is clearly a good idea. You're wearing it right now. You're not only training out of Ground Control, you're a big time coach. The head striking coach out of Ground Control, have been for years. You have a UFC fighter out of your gym. You got a lot going on. And I believe you told me before your fight that like you're going to throw yourself back into coaching. So what's on the coaching that you could talk about? I mean, are you making a trip anywhere? Are you doing any cornering? Because I know like you're balancing your own career with also loving being a coach, which is by itself a career.
Yeah, for sure. Man, I was actually talking to my buddy about this tonight. I got a lot of things planned out. Literally next week, I'm going to Tulsa, Oklahoma. One of my coaches, one of my main training partners, Steven Sparks, he's fighting in the National Golden Gloves tournament because he's a regional champion now. So he goes to nationals. He's going to fight a bunch next week, but I'm going to be going to Tulsa, Oklahoma to corner him. September 9th, you had him on yesterday, Sean Souser. He's going to be fighting on LFA. It's a mixed martial arts fight bout. September 9th in Vail, Colorado.
which is a huge trip. And
Massive.
you're going out later because he was talking on the show about he's giving himself a little over a week, which is a smart idea.
Yeah, which is smart.
You're joining him later. Okay.
I'm joining him like a day or two before the weigh-in. He's gonna get acclimated to the all that stuff.
Elevation.
So he's gonna be there September 9th, Vail, Colorado. That's a big fight for him.
Huge.
Big step up for him. Trying to think off the top of my head. I know we have Patrick Rivera. He's about a fight away from the UFC, in my opinion. He'll be fighting on LFA, but it's in South Dakota, which I don't think sounds that fun, but that's October 14th. That's another trip. I'm trying to think of. I have all the amateurs fighting at the very last weekend of October in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And then, I mean, this entire time I'm going to be training. I'm going to still be working on my skills. I'm going to be letting the injuries heal up, get some of the food cravings out of the way. But in that time, hopefully between December and February, I'm going to be back on Jetter Promotions. He's got a show in Philadelphia in December. He's got a show back at Maryland Live in February. So the whole time now, I'm just going to be kind of adding some things to my game, making sure these guys are sharp and as ready as possible. But, once mostly Pat's fight's done and the South Carolina trip's done, I'm full steam ahead for the fall and the winter for making another fight. I definitely want to fight again. I'd like to fight before this year's over, but if not, I'm going to fight the beginning of 2023 for sure.
Well,
I get to make some cool. I get to make some cool trips. Yeah, I definitely live the dream. I get to travel to a bunch of cities and corner fights. It's ain't nothing else I'd rather do. So I'm lucky in that sense.
Yeah, those are great. I want to keep following the fighters out of your gym too. It was an honor to have Sean Susser. I've actually seen fight. I saw his second pro. Yeah, it was his second.
Justin Patton. Yep.
Yeah, against Justin General Patton. He's very impressive. And I'm going to be working. I'll talk to you after we finish the interview, or getting those names from you so I can reach out to the Tulsa, Oklahoma guy and see if I can kind of start following some of the ground control.
Nice. That'd be awesome. Yes.
If you could talk a little bit, because obviously I already talked to Sean Susser. That's a great opportunity for him. What is this Myrtle Beach trip? I know it's in October, but what's going on where you have a lot of amateurs? Is it a tournament? What's happening?
So it's called the IKF. It's sanctioned by the IKF, the International Kickboxing Federation. It's the East Coast Classic Tournament. It's a tournament I did years ago. I won years ago. I typically bring my amateurs there, and it's a good mix. It's like you have the novice guys to where you kind of just see where they're at, and you have the open class guys to where you have like the big kickboxers in the country come down, the open class divisions. You definitely there's a maximum of 4 fighters per bracket, so you get max 2 fights, but it's a good weekend to it's a drive. You can fly down there, whatever you guys want. A lot of good teams down there on the East Coast, especially, but honestly nationwide. And that's a trip we've made yearly. And I have a good, hungry team of amateurs. Like I've got a couple guys that have good records, like 9-0, 10-1, that I want to bring down there to see where they're at, but also have some debut guys I want to show off a little bit. So right now I have about 7 to 8 amateurs I'm probably going to bring down there. So I want to put all my time into them for that as well. So that's always a good trip. I like Myrtle Beach. Like Johnny Davis runs that tournament. It's a good tournament. Never had a complaint about that tournament at all. It's a good time. And it's always good rounds, always good fights for our guys to see where they're at. So. And
it's also cool for you. I remember when you won that because you got the belt and you posted a really nice thing on Facebook kind of about your whole journey because that was one of your first amateur belts. Yeah. And it's exciting that you're at the point in your career as a coach where you're being able to take amateurs through what you've experienced and what has worked well. Some of those tournaments are very well run, some not as much. Right. Having taken 4 or 5 fighters to tournaments before, there was a tournament in it was either
the WKAs.
WKAs, that's what it was.
That's a tournament that's coming up soon. I have no problem saying that's a horrendous tournament.
No, well, I was gonna say Jordan went to that tournament. I had 4 or 5 people go to that tournament. It's not as well run, but at the same time, what I was gonna get to is how important is it for you to see some of these, like you said, not only for their own skill, the 9-0, the 10-1, but how do you develop as a coach the ability for your team to kind of take care of itself? That's something I started learning you're way above me, of course, but like seeing teammates become better at helping each other, whether it's cornering, whether it's supporting their mindset before or after a fight. Like, does that develop naturally, or is that stuff that you also try to coach in addition to the X's and O's, so to speak?
I'm lucky we have such a big roof over our head, but I will say that like our whole team is very homegrown. Like it's not like we've had assistant coaches roll in there. Like all of the guys that helped me are guys that started with me. And I am lucky in the sense that I do have a few fighters that if I'm not there to run classes for a week, they can run the classes. If I'm not there, I can only pay attention to so many fighters. I can only pay attention to so many people to give them the right attention they need. There's so many guys that I have now, like Jake Dart, Tim Kang, guys like that, to where they can pull guys aside and they can work with them for a half hour and they can actually catch them up to speed. Like I'm not going to lie, at this point in my life, with the amount of, I run about 6, 7, 8 classes a week. I do private lessons on the side. I work with professional fighters and I work with the good amateurs, but I can't pay attention to everybody. Over time, it builds up. Over time, like these guys kind of like know what I ask for, what I kind of want, because they do the same things that I want. So I've been lucky to have a lot of guys pick up the slack. I can't imagine being the only guy kind of coaching and the only guy kind of overseeing things. So I do have a lot of help. And it just happens organically. Like if you kind of build in the right things into your students, they can pick up the slack when you're gone. There's a handful of guys I trust in the corner with me. And that's just through repetition. Like you build that in sparring. Like I'll let sometimes, like when we'll have a sparring night, like typically a ground control or sparring night is on Tuesdays. Some nights I'm a little tired. I'll be like, hey, you're cornering this side, you're cornering this side, and they'll get their practice then. Because to me, sparring, I don't know what your mentality was with sparring. I know a lot of people don't agree with me. When I coach sparring, sparring is a fight. There's no, to me, there's never a, I'm always trying to articulate my thoughts the best way. I never really think that there should be, I don't agree with light. It sounds bad. I don't agree with light sparring. And that's, hear me out. Like, I think light sparring is drilling. I think light sparring has its own place. But you know those guys that spar light spars with the guy that spars hard. The guy that spars hard is going way too hard. So it's kind of not an agreement. So when you spar, in my opinion, you guys should both be here. And that is when I think you find out if somebody wants to fight and if the things are actually working for the fighter. But it's also where the cornermen come into play. And you kind of see who's composed to give the right advice in the corner. And it's all through trial and error in the gym and or on the smaller fight cards. But that's kind of where I found out who I want in the corner with me or with other coaches. So it's all trial and error. There's no handbook to be a coach, but it's luckily like kind of how I've worked it out, you know?
Well, and
that makes sense.
There's different philosophies to coaching. Clearly,
yeah.
That's one of the reasons why I think it's important. We've talked about it before. You know, this is why it's important to have the culture that works for the gym, as the coach, as the people, because some of the mega gyms that get more famous through MMA, Jackson Wink and some of the other ones, you might not get a homegrown culture. You get people flying in from all over the country, and that's its own culture. That's its own thing.
Yeah.
So it is cool that you can see that, and obviously, like you said, you have to see cornering in action. And so if you're sparring gives you as the coach the opportunity to see how other people coach, it's a good thing overall. And I love the fact that you've got obviously somebody in the UFC, multiple levels around the UFC, LFA. Sean Schuster was talking yesterday about really wanting to put his sights long-term on ONE FC because it's an Asian regional area, which is his home area. And he kind of would love to be there. So you're going to end up from little ground control, you're going to end up having people potentially fighting all over the world. And that's the cool part. That really is. Well, I appreciate you taking all the time. We'll have you back on about various things, I'm sure. Yep. So congratulations on your debut going in many ways perfectly, because yes, a 30-second knockout would maybe feel more adrenaline, but I think a 4-round fight, you learn more, you have more tape on yourself. And that's your mind as a coach. You're going to get a lot more out of those 4 rounds than you would 30 seconds or something like that. So thanks for taking time out. Hats off to you and everybody at Ground Control. Obviously, we're pulling for Sean Schuster in September and everybody in between. So thanks so much. Take care.
Appreciate you, man. Looking forward to talking to you again.
You got it. Anytime, buddy. You got it. Can't wait. Have a good one. Congrats. All right, bud. Bye-bye.